Action! Welcome back to Show and Tell. I'm Billie. Today's episode, we're going to delve into the old stars of the silver screen and some of the fashions that they wore, which I believe could translate to knitting. I'm going to compare them to some patterns that are listed on Ravelry. I did want to bring you up to date on my current project, the 1935 holiday jumper. And I'm doing it as a knit along with a group of other people, and I'm trying to stay a step or two ahead of them in case issues come up. I can address them because I will have already done it. I started with not the front or the back. I started with one of the sleeves, which I now have on a holder. The sleeve called for short row shaping, so I've marked here with light bulb removable stitch markers each place where I turned on both sides. So there's the sleeve. I haven't totally finished the sleeve cap because I'm waiting to see how big my arm side needs to be. Often with vintage patterns, this dimension from the shoulder to the underarm is short. Women probably had very slender arms and didn't insist on the mobility that we want today. So my measurement from here to the underarm, I'm usually looking at between 8 and 9 inches. But because this yarn is very stretchy, and Andrea of Fruity Knitting reports that she had to cut off the bottom of her sweater and shorten it because the thing sagged a lot, I'm really kind of waiting to see before I knit the second sleeve. These are quick and easy. This was actually my swatch because it's such a small piece of knitting. So I did that. Then I started on, always the first section is to knit the back of the sweater. So I went ahead and I knit this. This is to the underarm. But after seeing how much give it has, I'm afraid that this might be large. This particular pattern, the front of the sweater has different stitch count than the back of the sweater. So I may in fact make this my front and not the back. And the other piece, which for now I'm going to call the back, I did the way the pattern suggests. I used size 2 US needles to knit the first section. On this one, I thought, because my waist is a little bigger than what the pattern would call for, I thought, oh, I don't want to be like bound at the waist. So I did a larger size needle here. This pattern calls for 3 different needle sizes. On this one, I only used 2. I used the middle size and the larger size. But on the other part, which may be the back, I did start with the size 2 needle, and then I went up to the medium size, and now I'm at the largest size, which is still not very large. Pattern called for US 235. I'm doing 234. And you can see that it is wider just simply from changing the needle size. I had to use these vintage needles that my friend Sabina gave me because the only other size 2s that I have are my ChiaoGoos, and the metal tips are just way too slippery. It was really uncomfortable knitting with this yarn and the slippery metal needles. So if you haven't seen these before, they're celluloid. Each size is a different color, and this little metal piece slides. It's like I don't know, I guess it's supposed to be a stitch saver. If you have your stitches here, you can push it through here, and if you slide it down far enough, you can organize it so that this other tip will go into here. So whatever stitches I would have in between they're not going to fall off. They're locked in by these two metal pieces. Let me widen it. So you can imagine you could have all your stitches in here, or even more. I mean, you can adjust it to where it suits you. For storage, I like to have them as compressed as I possibly can. So I will push that all the way. But even with this, you could have stitches going from here to there. Very practical, very clever. These are British. Okay, so that's the front, back, one sleeve. Then I've also started the collar. The collar's not finished. There needs to be a blue border on this edge as well. I haven't done that yet. But this, they call the ear. This is meant to be tied to the other part of the collar over here, which will be blue with a white trim. And as you can see, this is stockinette. It's not ribbing. So this is quite easy to knit up. The edging is ribbed though. And it's interesting the way they tell you to decrease from the ribbing to get to the white to compensate for this being stockinette and this being ribbing. Look how smooth it is. No puckering. Beautiful. It's really great. If you watch Andrea of Fruity Knitting, she recently reported that she too is using Arctic Pearl by Pasquale, the sea cell, 100% lyocell seaweed product. And she literally had to cut off the bottom of her sweater because it had stretched down so far. Hopefully that's not going to be the case with me. I'm not finding that in this direction it's got a lot of give. It's this way horizontally because of the ribbing, but it springs back. Like it doesn't stretch out permanently. I don't know how it's going to be with wearing it, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed, hoping for the best. To refresh your memory, the yarn I am using is called Arctic Pearl, and the color is Lucky 13. Color's really beautiful. I consider it like a Parish blue. You know, I want to digress a moment because I found this really interesting link online that's a color, I don't know what you would call it, like a color finder. You can write in the name of a color or a description of the color, and it will conjure up the color for you. So I consider this like a Parish blue, if you're familiar with Maxfield Parrish, the artist. I'll put some pictures of some of his artwork here so you can see what I'm talking about. He's famous for his blue, which I think is kind of like this really beautiful shade. Anyway, that's a fun thing to play around with, a fun tool to play around with if you're trying to discover new colors that work for you. Anyway, back to my knitting. Well, maybe I should do it on, yeah, you know what? Let me do it online with you. I also promised you a week or so ago that I would start to provide you with a list of some films from the Art Deco period. The Film Forum in New York, which is a vintage movie house, has a whole lineup from early September through the end of the year of little scene films most of them are not going to be available on any streaming service that you know. I will be running to see several of them that I haven't seen. Well, I haven't seen a lot of them, but I'm trying to limit it. Otherwise, I'd be going there like every week, which maybe isn't such a bad thing. But I know a couple of people who will be speaking before or after some of the films, so I'm going to make a special point of seeing those. But so far, I have already watched a few of the ones that are at the top of the list. So I wanted to mention them to you. The festival will begin with Our Dancing Daughters from 1928. The next film they'll show is 100 Men and a Girl. In addition to that, they'll show Our Gang Follies of 1938, which they bill as the biggest budgeted Little Rascals short ever made, a lavish musical partly set in a high deco nightclub. The next film is Counselor at Law, 1933. Then they're showing The Black Cat, which I just watched, 1933. The Art Deco house that Boris Karloff's character built is one of the most incredible houses I've seen in any film of any time period. So that's a really interesting one. It's sort of like an early horror film. It wasn't horrifying to me, but it's interesting. Female, 1933, directed by Michael Curtiz, starring Ruth Chatterton, George Brent, Ruth Donnelly, Johnny Mac Brown. I watched this one too recently. The lead character is a woman who's inherited a very large American corporation, and she's surrounded by men and has no love life. So one by one, she invites some of her male employees unwittingly to her home for dinner. They think they're coming there to talk business, but she has other ideas in mind. And her clothes are simply stunning. You'll be seeing one of them later in this video, one of her outfits. Next film they're showing is Grand Hotel of 1931, directed by Edmund Goulding, starring Greta Garbo, John Barrymore, Joan Crawford, Lionel Barrymore, and Wallace Beery. Art direction by Cedric Gibbons. And the last film I'm going to mention this week is Penthouse, 1933, directed by W.S. Van Dyke. So now I'm going to show you some, when we're talking about cinema, we're going to call them costumes, but some of the clothing that I've taken screenshots of when I'm watching movies on my laptop. I keep a folder on my computer of inspiration, and I'm always inspired by cinema, especially of this golden era. And always in the back of my mind is a plan to take those and apply them to silhouettes or patterns that appeal to me. I'm going to go over to Ravelry. I'll try and get it on my screen so that you'll be able to see exactly where I'm going and what I'm pulling up. But I picked out a variety of patterns that are shown on Ravelry. They may not all be available to purchase on Ravelry because some of them are vintage, but I will put links in the show notes so you can go directly to Ravelry yourself and look at these things in closer detail. Some of them are out of books, but I thought that these sweaters seem to have some of the Hollywood inspiration that I've been looking for. So bear with me. Let me take you to Ravelry. This pattern is called You for Me by Hinterm Stein. And let me show you some of the bigger pictures. That really has the Hollywood vibe because she's got the pearls on. But I was sort of imagining if you did this section in some kind of a sheer yarn, that could make it even more Hollywood-like. Okay, the next sweater that I found is called Sheer V Sweater by Jessie Made Designs. I just think the sheer insert gives it that glamorous silver screen kind of vibe. This is very reminiscent of the As If tee that I knit. Let me bring that up for you. It's so much like the things that June Allison was wearing and some of the other pictures that I have. Let me find my version because it's also here. Let's go to the projects. This is a little tutorial for those who are not so familiar with wandering around Ravelry. I think that I can search for myself, Billie Toy. And here's my version with my granny's tea set, this beautiful blue paisley. This sheer summer top by Walnut Farm Designs is kind of the look that I'm thinking of because you see there are sheer parts. This particular yarn is made that way. Part of it is sheer and part of it is solid. I think it's a really pretty look. So it's not exactly my Hollywood vibe, but I think the yarn should be considered. And let me tell you what the yarn is. Kacha Krita, that. And look, it's not discontinued. If it was, it would say right here, discontinued. This pattern is simply called Sheer by Grace Jones, née Melville. And it appears that this upper part is sheer. Here's a different version of it. Yeah, the upper part is sheer. This pattern, Maria by Julie Weisenberger, again has that sheer quality to it. And then this little asymmetrical fold, I think, is so lovely. And I think in Hollywood, you might have had some kind of a ruffle. I have a picture of a Dior dress that is inspirational to me that I'll also pop in here. Has the same feel. Here's the Stratford from Minerva Yarns from their Volume 30 style book. I love the buttons and the contrasting color. And you'll see the golfer with the buttons on her skirt and the buttons on her hat that are the opposite colors. So this reminded me of that. The green traveling suit with that interesting clutch handbag and the lucite handle. This kind of reminded me of that very like all put together style from head to toe in one color. This is the Stonehenge, also from the same Minerva style book. And lastly, I wanted to bring to your attention this entire book by Bill Gibb called Vintage Hollywood Knits, 20 Glamorous Sweaters as Worn by the Stars. So I'll run through each of these for you. I'm not familiar with Adele Jergens. Cary Grant, we all know. Claudette Colbert, looks like she's got a little Tyrolean number on. Just refer to the Tyrolean pattern that I'm currently knitting. There is a pattern that I love for this Cary Grant type sweater. Let me get that 1 second. This is the Cricket Sweater by Mariko Mikuni. Unfortunately, it looks like the pattern is only available in Japanese. And from this book, Mariko's Knitting Tour. But if you have a basic V-neck sweater pattern, you could certainly figure out how to do the cabling on the saddle shoulder and cabling down here. The main thing about this is the two-tone neckline of the V and the stripes, the two-tone stripes on the sleeve and above the ribbing. It's a good-looking sweater, huh? Here's another colorway. I prefer the gray, don't you? Then we have Dorothy Lamour with kind of off-the-shoulder yoke. Errol Flynn, very classic V-neck, probably cashmere. Gary Cooper in a Nordic ski sweater. Greta Garbo. Jane Greer. Jane Wyman. She was married to Ronald Reagan before he married Nancy. Jean Harlow. Jennifer Jones. This looks a little bit later, maybe 60s. Joan Crawford. Judy Garland. Lana Turner. Loretta Young. Marilyn. Peggy Cummins, not familiar with her. Robert Taylor, more cables, stunning. Vilma Banky, that looks like a real retro sweater, very cute for tennis. And Virginia Mayo. So some of those might tickle your fancy. You should be able to find this book. If I can find it, I'll put a link to where you can purchase the book in the show notes. Okay, so I think that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this. Not everything is available. You might have to go a level deeper, get the book from your local library or purchase the book. But a lot of these things you should be able to find if you're really determined to do so. I imagine that some of you are experienced enough knitters that you might be able to improvise and create your own. So if you see a silhouette of an existing pattern that you like, you might be able to adapt that by putting in the cables or making it two-tone like the model that you see. Take care, everybody. Toodaloo. See you next time.